Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we are going to tackle the large task of trying to talk about where we think Katsu is going to be in the meta for the Dusk Till Dawn season, right? And just kind of give my thoughts on what his good matchups are, what his bad matchups are now that Oldheim is gone, and we're getting two new heroes to add to the fray. You know, where does he sit? Obviously, this is going to just give me baseline predictions. It's going to be fun to see where it actually does end up. But overall, I think kind of short version is I think Katsu's actually in a good spot. I know we've kind of been saying that for a couple of months now, but I really do think with Oldheim gone and the way the meta is going to warp because of that, I think you could see Katsu be in a pretty decent spot. Maybe not like S tier, but A tier level hero in my opinion. But we'll kind of get into it. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. If you're a long-standing supporter, again, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everything y'all been doing. The channel support's been crazy since the new set dropped, and y'all just keep going nuts with it. So feel free to check out the Patreon and Discord down below if you're interested in that. We have access to a really great community, over 400 members, and yeah, we'll get right into it. So I made this super simple: favored, slightly favored, neutral, slightly unfavored, or unfavored, right? So I don't think Katsu has any like crazy like heavily favored or heavily unfavored matchups. I really don't. I think he's pretty good into most of the field, but he's also like teetering the middle line against a lot of decks. So we'll kind of get into that, and I'll also give a little bit more context on what matchups I think are like knowledge intensive and skill intensive, because there are a couple of matchups where like if one side doesn't know what the other is actually trying to do or isn't super familiar with their game plan, it gets really bad really fast. So first off, what we'll do that's really easy is we'll do Living Legend. So Starvo, you go there, and y'all won't be able to see everything. There's so many heroes now that we can't, fit them all in there. Where's the last one? Where are you? Chain, there you are. So we're gonna get into it. We'll just go in order. So Arachne, it's pretty favored. Arachne has a lot of trouble. Now, if you don't respect Arachne and you don't know when's a good time to block, because there is sometimes, and when there's not good times to block, he can really hurt you, right? If you see a 7-power Eradicate off of a buff, you might want to respect it a little bit. Because Arachne can whittle you down really fast, and if they're playing super fatigue Arachne with unmovables and sinks and fates and sigils and everything else, they can outlast you. I've played Arachne a lot myself, and I'm pretty 50-50 into the matchup because a lot of Katsus just straight up won't respect me and what I'm trying to do, and because of that, right, it's not that hard to really get them, in a weird spot sometimes. So be careful. I think if both players are equal in skill and know what they're doing, I think it's very favored for the most part. Arachne can't quite block you out, especially with all the breakpoints we have now and all the stuff that doesn't require an on-hit to tutor, that, it gets a little bit easier against that. Azalea, I'm going to put Azalea in the neutral. Some people disagree with me, some people agree. I've heard Katsu players that say it's favored for them. I've heard Azalea players that say it's favored for them. I've also heard of Azalea players that say they can't never be a Katsu, and I've heard Katsu players say they can never beat Azalea. It's really, really weird. I think if both people are evenly matched, I actually think it's neutral. Now, this can really sway heavily depending on who draws what. If Katsu draws into his combo, Azalea has a lot of trouble. A lot of the Azalea lists, especially like even mine, are very offensive minded now. They don't have as many sinks, fates, all that stuff, sigils. So because of that, if you hit your combo pieces right, Azalea has a really hard time blocking you out. Azalea also doesn't have access to bullseye bracers anymore, which really does hurt. But then on the flip side, if Azalea just red ledgers you a couple times, like for 10 dominate, 8 dominate, 9 dominate, hits you with a couple other things that can really hurt you, gives you frailty tokens, it really also can hurt you too. So I think it's neutral. And when I say neutral, I think it's like 55-45 or 45-55. I don't think it's heavily to one or the other personally. I think if you made me pick, I'd say it's slightly unfavored, but good Katsu players will beat Azaleas in my opinion. But for now, we'll just for the general consensus of the public, I think it's slightly unfavored, but high level play, I think it's more even. Bolton, it's neutral. I've played against new Boltons already. It's literally, do they draw the combo before you do? Most Boltons right now are on Raiden, not on Sabers. They're not on the full combo build. They're not trying to block you out and build their soul and go crazy. they're just constantly filling their soul, using some of their soul to get go again, filling their soul, and then they play Lumina when they get it, and they're just trying to tempo you out, at least from what I'm seeing so far. And it literally is 50-50. If they draw their Luminas early and quick, it's a bad day for you. It just is, because the life swing they get is pretty substantial. If you draw your combo pieces, they also really struggle and they can't quite keep up. And once they lose tempo, they kind of just lose it. So it's very neutral. I think it's whoever hits their combo pieces first wins. It's pretty simple. People are going to disagree with me on this. You can if you want. Maybe at a high level, it's not unfavored. It's not favored, but I think Bravo now is actually favored for Katsu. Before it wasn't. It really wasn't. Katsu was not consistent enough to pressure Bravo and make it difficult. And the old consensus was always that Bravo kills aggro. Bravo hurts aggro. Bravo does this. And he does. When Bravo... It depends a little bit. If Bravo hits his pieces, if he hits his cripplings, if he hits his choke slams, if he hits his big pieces consecutively, hits spinals back to back, yes, he can really hurt you. But he has to do that to beat aggro, in my opinion. Now I think Katsu's caught up. I think Fi's out there, Lexi's out there, and I think Bravo can really struggle against just that consistent damage, because even Katsu now, there's no off turns anymore, or there's very little, and Bravo doesn't have that ability to kind of gain tempo whenever we trip up a little bit. And I personally think that it is slightly favored now for Katsu. That's just my opinion. I've had very little trouble with Bravos, and I've played good ones. Pretty positive in that matchup. So that's just my opinion. Briar is neutral. If she hits her channel turns early and first before you hit your Bond's turn, she wins. If she doesn't, she kind of loses. That's just my opinion. I do think Katsu is a little bit more will win those 50-50 matchups more because he's a little bit more consistent, in my opinion. But it really depends. The neutral doesn't mean they're exactly 50-50. It just means that it can also be flippy-floppy, right? Where it's not like a consistent one or the other. Dash, there's multiple types of dash, but I'm going to say slightly favored. Tree Frog dash can give you a little bit of trouble, but even she has a hard time blocking out Katsu now. Boost dash can try to race you, and before bonds, they could race you and beat you, and it was a hard matchup. Now it's a little bit easier. Dash is kind of in a rough spot against Katsu. All builds of Dash are kind of in a rough spot. So that's just that. Dory's kind of unknown. I want to see how much Iron Song really affects, right, the courage token mechanic. I do think that... How do I put this? So this right here, I'm actually going to make an on-the-spot row for Dory. This matchup is the most knowledge-based matchup I think Katsu has. I think if you know what to block and when to block and when not to block and when to just race, I think that it's probably slightly favored for Katsu. But Katsus who don't know when to block against Dory and when not to block and don't know how to read what's in their grave, what was their sequence, where could they be possibly playing this hand, when they don't know those things, then Dory just runs all over them. So it's a very knowledge-based matchup, and I think it can cause trouble for Katsus if they don't know what they're doing. But if you know the Dory deck, you know what it's trying to do, and you kind of understand its play patterns, I think it's favored for Katsu. Jeremiah is favored for Katsu. It's just favored. People keep saying it's not. I have lost to Jeremiah on Katsu, but overall, Jeremiah really has to draw right. The red line lists can't race. Some of the slower lists can if they build a board state, but really Katsu just has free triggers all day long with this deck, and I haven't had a whole lot of trouble with it. Fi is neutral. Again, just like any aggro matchup, whoever goes first is at a disadvantage. Whoever goes second is at an advantage, and as long as you don't trip up, if you go second and you keep tempo, you most of the time have an advantage, but it is true 50-50. This is the most 50-50 matchup. Whoever, whatever. Katsu's obviously, the mirror is neutral. Icelander is slightly unfavored. They can really put you in a bad spot, especially there's multiple Icelander builds that can hurt you. The Chilling Ice Vein builds can hurt you. Channel Lake Frigid always is going to hurt you. Or Ether Ice Vein, not Chilling Ice Vein. Chilling Ice Vein is Lexi. Ether Ice Vein builds can really hurt you. Even the Bullander builds can really hurt you if they do things right. Even without Hypothermia and Amulet, they still, if it's a good Icelander, it's unfavored. the skill difference with Icelanders, because a lot of people are just trying out the hero and have to learn its play patterns. So it can give you like a false positive when you do really well against it. But a skilled Icelander, it's unfavored for sure. Kano, I'm going to honestly say, so again, good Kano. I'm going to honestly say it's slightly unfavored. Kano can just blow you out. I mean, it sucks, man. You have to really pop off. You have to hit all your turns and be constantly putting foot on the gas, because good Kanos will just know how to poke you, whittle you away, block, set up the combo, kill you. Like, and if you don't have Oasis on the sideboard, or you haven't put them low enough to where they can't get to their combo, it's just, can I get Kano in the lethal range before he finds his combo, right? While also trying to stay above 30 health. Really hard to do. I think Kano is honestly slightly favored in Katsu, and that's just my opinion. Levia, I hope Mansant and all of those amazing Levia mains prove me wrong. As of right now, until even with new Levia redeemed, even with everything else, I have to play against it to think it's worse than what it is right now. And right now it's favored for Katsu. And until they show me the new builds and prove me wrong, then that's where it's at. Lexi's unfavored. I know that the list, the one list, the Polish list, did really well against Lexi to their claim, and that other people have said they haven't had much trouble. But if Lexi draws what she draws, even without Bullseye Bracers, she just beats you. Like, you have to basically hot draw against her to beat her, and I'll stand by that. Like, her base damage hands around 12 damage, and then she can just blow you out for 20 plus damage with on hits. Like, if you don't draw into your full bonds line at a constant rate, you just hurt. It's not even slightly unfavored. It's unfavored in my opinion. People can disagree with that, but it's just a good Lexi's just going to beat you unless she draws terribly. New Prism, I've played against a couple. Obviously, this is super exploratory. I just think she's going to be unfavored against Katsu. I think she's going to struggle. The fact that if I hit you with one Kadachi, your Angel pops makes it really hard for her. And they can't do what they used to do and swap. So they used to be able to just swap into Heralds and then race you with Luminaris. They can't do that anymore. I'm sure amazing Prism players like Fenno Black and those guys will break the code on Prism and make her good. But I think until I see something crazy, she's definitely going to be unfavored in Katsu. Reinar, unfavored in Katsu. If he plays really correctly, then he can win. Of course, it's definitely like if he hits his Blood Rushes back to back, it's pretty nutty. But he really has to do that against Katsu in order to win. It's pretty unfavored for him. Riptide is interesting. I actually think Riptide is slightly favored in the Katsu if it's like the crazy Unga Bunga go fast Riptide, because they create really consistent frailty tokens and they'll use their traps to hinder what you're trying to do. I've struggled against Riptide a little bit. Maybe I'm just bad. I don't know. But I've struggled a little bit, but I haven't played a ton of them lately to kind of give that consistency anymore. Uziri is slightly unfavored. It definitely is knowledge based. So I'm going to put it knowledge based. So on a normal playing field, it's unfavored slightly, obviously. But I think it's also knowledge based. I think knowing and having tech for her, Burns of the Past, helping with D-Reacts, not arsenaling your power pieces because she has constant arsenal disruption. There's certain things you can do to make that matchup better. Present like your big attacks earlier in the chain instead of later in the chain against her to make her like give up her cards earlier, and then punish her later in the chain versus the other way around, which is normally what happens. She's very knowledge based, but she is kind of slightly unfavored, but I'm gonna put her in knowledge based for now. Viscera, you're slightly favored into. Obviously, if he hits his Revel turns, it's pretty nuts. And he can beat you, but overall they struggle against us. They have to use their equipment early just to keep up, and really they have to kind of hit the nuts on their turns to win. Vincent is completely unknown. I would say after playing Vincent for a little bit, she is probably going to be slightly unfavored against Katsu, so we'll be slightly favored against her. I don't know I'm only going off how I'm playing Vincent right now, which is the Go Tall build, and that build can put out like 10 to 12 damage a turn and can race pretty well, but I don't know how it's going to be when it comes to, and I know it's a young version up there, both of them, when it comes to that. But I think she'll be slightly unfavored. I think she's really going to have to go crazy and really have to find ways to hit the right turns at the right time in order to keep up with you. But she does have a ton of block. And if they use stuff like Diedrich instead of Husk, because I think the new Runeblade chess piece might actually be better against Katsu than Husk because you can block out multiple breakpoint attacks. She definitely could keep up, but I think it's slightly unfavored for her. So this is kind of where it sits. I think, honestly, if Dory, I think these are both knowledge-based, but let's just say on a normal playing field, you're slightly favored in Dory, I think. And then you're slightly unfavored, right? So those two are knowledge-based just for your knowledge, no pun intended. But I think this is kind of where it sits. You're definitely pretty good into most of the meta. I think your biggest struggles are Uziri, Icelander, and Lexi. Like these three are your top three like hardest to play against. And the issue is two of these are top in the meta right now. So I think like if you reset this for 2 seconds and then we just say meta decks, right? I think obviously, and then we'll put LL down here. So LL, let's get rid of those for 2 seconds. I'm not going to go through every single hero again, but if you just kind of go through this, where is it? Okay. Meta decks, I think, obvious until we see something change or something different, I think you're going to see Dromai, you're going to see Uziri, and Lexi are the top three. Lexi's first, then I think it's Dromai, then I think it's Uziri. I think Katsu falls in the next tier, and I think he'll fall alongside Bolton. I think will be there. I think Azalea will still be there. I think Dory will be there. This is just first glance. I think those are like the four that will be there. All of these will be all over the place. I'm not even going to try to rank those, but that's basically where you're at. But the good thing is like you're 50-50 in the Bolton or slightly favored. You're 50-50 into Azalea or, however you play it. You're 50-50 in all these decks. It's really skill intensive and making the right micro decisions. You're better than Dromai. You beat Dromai. You can beat Uziri, and then Lexi's hard. So out of the top three meta decks, you beat one deck. You can beat a second deck, and then the third deck's hard. So I think like Katsu's like at the top of A tier in my opinion. That's where I would put him. But yeah, that's kind of where I have Katsu sitting right now. Not a ton has changed. I definitely think with Oldheim leaving, he's just more playable now. You don't have to worry about saying like, okay, I'm a main Katsu and hope to God dodge Oldheim. Now you can just not play against Oldheim. But it'll also be interesting to see how these decks warp to the Dusk Till Dawn meta because it's going to be really fun. But yeah, let me know what you think, where you think Katsu sits, where you think he is on the meta chart. Obviously, these are just fun predictions for right now, but it's going to be fun to see where it ends up. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the list. And yeah, I'll see you all next time on TCG Talk. Thank you all so much.